Welcome to Stretford Paddock. Today's show is brought to you by Surfshark VPN. Now more than ever, we rely on the internet, whether that's streaming shows, streaming podcasts, speaking with loved ones, or of course, watching the football. Now more than ever, with our rapidly growing digital footprint, security is a huge concern. Thankfully though, Surfshark have got you covered because Surfshark VPN have got access to servers in loads of different countries, which means that you can change your virtual location to a place where the sport might be free to air, or there are different broadcasting rights, or even just being able to log in to your services from back home if you're abroad. Surfshark VPN also encrypts your online connection, making sure that all of your activities, including streaming matches, remains private and secure. And even if you're not just streaming football, whether it's the latest Netflix show or something on Amazon that you've been wanting to watch, you can watch it no matter where you are. And also, there's plenty of region exclusive stuff that you can get access to by changing your digital location. And by connecting to the optimized servers provided by Surfshark VPN, you may actually get faster streaming speeds and reduced buffering, so you're not going to be waiting ages to see if that last minute shot actually went in. Overall, Surfshark VPN offers you the best flexibility, security, and accessibility to all the streaming and shows you could possibly want, making it the best choice for streaming. And currently Surfshark have a phenomenal deal on. Using the code Paddock, which is easy to remember, you get 4 extra months for free and a 30-day money-back guarantee. Again, 4 extra months for free and a 30-day money-back guarantee. Go and check out the link in the description. And thank you once again to Surfshark for sponsoring the show. Hello and welcome to Stretford Paddock. This is the Paddock Podcast. My name is Joe. I'm joined, as always, by Jay Motti. How are you?
I'm good, man. Yeah,
Good.
I am. Feeling positive.
And Ronaldo Brown, how are you doing today?
I'm okay.
Yeah.
Have you had a good weekend?
For once, though, it's not Man United that's put your weekend and early start to the week on the ropes, is it?
I don't want to talk about it.
It's your own decision making.
Yeah, you had a little bit of a birthday bash.
I don't want to talk about it because I think when I talk about it, I went through a phase yesterday of any time I breathed,
Yeah.
I could feel tequila in my throat.
Who is it?
Do you know what I mean? And it
Sounds
felt
like
like...
You've just got past the worst of it, do you think?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I got past the worst of it last night.
Good stuff.
Yeah, you're doing well, man. Hang on in there. I'm proud of you.
We've got loads to talk about today. We want to talk about United's new principles because I think, obviously, Onana, it feels to a lot of people, I think every manager has their kind of the stick that is used to beat them. I think it happens a lot. I think, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer in particular, it was the likes of Harry Maguire, spending 80 million on him. I think playing McFred as often as he did was something that was, I know he didn't sign either of those players, but it was something that was used to beat him. I think with Ten Hag, Anthony.
Yeah, massively.
And I think Onana represents another one of those people that is like a symbol of the mistakes we've made in the past. So he's left, or looks to be very much on the cusp of leaving today. But I think that shows and looks at a wider thing of Man United's new principles, the types of players that we're signing, not just in terms of style, in terms of physicality, in terms of systems or 3 at the back, 4 at the back, whatever it is, but also their age profile, the fact that this might not just be a one and done. If the manager leaves, his whole squad has to get kicked out as well. So we're going to get into that. Also want to look a little bit at these Hall of Famers that have been announced, the nominees there, and a little bit of a chat about the Rooney versus Owen debate, which we'll get into in a bit. Well, let's start with this new sort of system that United seem to have. So some of the players that United have got rid of this summer, and it's worth mentioning as well that Victor Lindelof left this summer as well. He was allowed to leave. Christian Eriksen was allowed to leave as well. Now Onana's just gone. It's been Garnacho, it's been Rashford, it's been Sancho, it's been Anthony, it's been Højlund. United have got rid of a lot of players. And the players that we brought in, Joe, we were talking before, and you were sort of discussing the fact that unlike other managers, potentially, if, let's say, the worst happens and Amorim leaves, we're not going to have to sell 6 of the 7 players that we've signed since he got here.
Yeah, I think I'd be very surprised if, like, let's say worst case scenario, Amorim doesn't make it to the end of the season, a new manager comes in, a new manager looks at these signings and went, I can't work with these, or you'd have to get a certain manager that could work with these players. A lot of them, I think, are just good players that could fit into most systems. I know, like, obviously, Cunha and Bumo, they definitely fit his system. I get that. But I think that most managers would be happy to have those two players in your squad. Benjamin Sesko, it felt like that was a signing as much for the future as it was for the here and now. And also with the goalkeeper, Le Mans, it definitely feels like that isn't just, let's get a goalkeeper in right now that this manager could use right now. It's also one that is again for the future. And this whole sort of ethos that we seem to be going through of buying players that are a little bit younger. I think it's Mbumo, he's 26, is he? 25, 26. Cunha, similar age. I know that's not dead young, but you look at the likes of...
but he only turned 26 a month ago, so he's,
There's been a lot of signings under Amorim that have been young.
Yeah.
Like Aiden Heaven, Dog is quite young, Sesko's young as well. Lamens is very, very young, especially for a goalkeeper. So it definitely feels a little bit more like there's some more forward planning going on here, where it's not just like, well, these are certain players that if this manager doesn't work out, then the next manager is going to come in and he's going to go, I can't work with Benjamin Sesko. I can't possibly have Aiden Evan in my team. Like, well, of course he could. So it does feel, to me, slightly different than in the past. I mean, obviously, it's early doors. We'll wait and see what happens. And, I might be sat here in a year's time when someone's come in and got rid of them all. But it definitely does feel like Manchester United do have more of an eye on the future than we have done in the past. Because, you look at the January window. Dorgu, he's straight in there. But Aiden Heaven... I know he played a lot of games, played a few games, didn't until he got injured, but he was definitely one for the future, and rightly so, because he looks like he's a very, very talented player. And that's one small bit of comfort we can take so far from what Ineos have done in the transfer window, because far too often you've had signings that have been made and the next manager's come in and he's just gone, whether that was like Ole when it was like Sanchez and even Lukaku to a certain degree. I don't think he really fancied him, whether it was...
we can go through
Ten Hag when he came in, there was a lot of players that he didn't particularly fancy. I mean, you mentioned Maguire there at one point. He wasn't getting in the team under Eric Ten Hag, was he? He stripped him of the captaincy and dropped him from the team, and he was an £80 million signing under the not the previous manager but the one before, Ralph Rangnick. So we've seen this in the past at United, where a new manager comes in and he goes, right, some of these new signings or the signings that were made under the old regime are not for me. This time feels a little bit different to me anyway.
Yeah. Just we'll go, like I said, we'll go into some of the specifics and the details of what's changed. But do you think that this, at the moment, the oldest player we've signed was 26 at the point we signed him, which was Cunha. Like I said, and Burmo is now 26 as well. But even Cunha turned 26 at the end of May, so he just turned 26. He's very much in his mid-20s. Do you think this is a sort of a purposeful... We have a limit here. We're in a rebuild. We can't just be buying players for the here and now. We have to have, players that are going to work right away, like Mbumo and Cunha. But all of the players we sign need to still be viable, fit, maybe even improving for the next 2, 3, 4 years, rather than looking to replace them after 18 months. Do you think that's been a purposeful change, Ronnie?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I'm not sure that they announced that as a bit of an approach, didn't they, Ineos? And,
there was a leak. I don't know if it was an announcement or a leak that there was reports that Ineos are only going to go for a certain age. Yeah, they're going to focus on under 25s with some exceptions.
Focus on under 25s in terms of the recruitment. I believe a lot of clubs are doing that now anyway, because it's all about thinking of the future. But also, I think because of PSL and FFP, there's that little bit of money balling as well, where if you take a chance on a young talent and they're not quite good enough for where you want to go, you still have some sort of like resale value there, etc. But for me, I think that is a different approach, because obviously United did go through quite a phase of going for a lot of short-termism with their signings. Obviously the likes of Cavani and Ibrahimovic, and even if you're looking at Casemiro, and especially with the forward signings in the past, where even like Falcao, United were kind of looking at someone that's almost like not past their peak a little bit, but has enough cachet and stardom about them where they can still make some sort of an impact. Whereas United have kind of tailored the recruitment now to up with the times a little bit, going a bit more youthful, going a bit more younger, or even going pre-peak age, which is the type of age that I think Mbumo and Cunha are, where it's at 25, 26, where they're basically entering their prime. And I think that's probably that nice little sweet spot of where you'd want to sign players, especially with them being Premier League proven. And as you've said, Mbumo and Cunha are both players where they're good enough to where if system changes, manager changes, they'll still offer you a significant 100%. Amount of value. And then obviously Patrick Dorgu, it was a young promising talent in Serie A, was Lecce's best player, and United took a chance on him as well. and then you want to see where his development goes, and you've got the likes of Diego Leon, Aiden Heaven, obviously Chido and they don't necessarily have a huge amount of pressure straight away. I know Dorgu's kind of been thrown in, but you still want to give him that kind of breeding ground and environment for him to develop and improve as well, because I think player development and improvement is something that United have struggled with over the last decade, so you definitely want that to improve as well.
I think if you look back at some of the transfer windows that we've had, and obviously I'm sure a lot of people can kind of recall this in their mind, but just as a bit of a reminder, so to go over the one that we've just had, we've got Sesko and Mbeumo, Cunha, Dorgu, Lomans, Diego Leon and Aiden Heaven. Again, almost, other than Mbeumo and Cunha, they're all 23 or younger.
Yeah.
They're all very young. These are all the players that have been signed since Amorim arrived. Then you look back to Ten Hag. Obviously, there's a few exceptions in there as well. Lenny Yoro, but again, that was an Ineos signing, so it sort of matches the new identity a little bit more. But players like Sofian Amrabat on loan, Casemiro is a really big one, I think.
Yeah.
29 years old, 70 million euros on a 4-year contract. But again, this isn't to have a go at any of these players in particular, but when you look at these players, and yes, they may match the age profile that we're going for now, but in terms of working across multiple managers, you might say, yes, Erik Ten Hag plays a 4 at the back, but I know many 4 at the back managers who wouldn't want Alessandro Martinez, for instance. And I think he's a fantastic defender.
No, I hear you.
So I'm sure a good manager could find a way to fit him in, and I think he will happen to work in the system we play now. But there's a lot of managers that would go 5'9", can't play for me. That they would, you know what I mean? Would just rule that out of hand, and we spent 50 million euros on him, which I think, again, I love that as a signing. I'm going to stand by that. But it is very much a signing for this manager, and we'll worry about the future later on.
Arteta wanted him.
Yeah, and I'm
Alessandro Martinez, isn't it?
I get that it's some managers will be okay with that, but he's not a one-size-fits-all defender. You look at Anthony, obviously, just didn't have the quality, but there wasn't the demand. There's a lot of managers that would look at him and go, he's not right, he's too lightweight, he doesn't get enough goals, he just isn't good enough, he's not quick enough, he's one-footed, he's not athletic enough. That would be something that a lot of managers would look at. Again, Casemiro, a lot of players would go, I don't want an ageing, leggy defensive midfielder. Like, it was always going to be, if Ten Hag leaves, a lot of these players aren't going to be fancied. Andre Onana's another one. Yes, you may have worked with him before, but as soon as a new manager has come in, he's been sort of given the chances he needs, but then he's been pushed out. And that's happens too often when a new manager comes in. They go, none of these players work for me.
No, even like, let's not forget, it was only because he didn't want to come that we didn't get De Jong. And that could have been another one. It was very much Erik Ten Hag type of player. He was desperate to sign money, and if it was 80 million or something, we were willing to pay for him. And Barcelona accepted. He didn't want. If he'd have said, "Yeah, we'd have him."
Yeah.
And I'm not saying, listen, he could have come in and set the world alight, but he was very much a player that fitted into a Ten Hag system that might not necessarily fit into a Ruben Amorim system, for example. Because I think you're probably still going to have the same problems now if you had Frankie De Jong in your team that you've got in terms of legs and all the rest of it. So yeah, it does feel as though in the past we've gone right. Who does this manager want? Get these players for this manager right now. Now, there's an element of that with Ruben Amorim. Obviously, I'm not saying that he doesn't want Brian Mbeumo, he doesn't want Mercedes Cunha, he doesn't want Benjamin Sesko, but there's certainly an element of looking ahead as well. And I don't think we're in as much trouble with these signings as we have been perhaps in the past, where you've sort of bet the house on a 30-year-old or even older in some cases, or a player that the manager knows and wants to work with because he's worked with him before, and you've massively overspent, as in the case of Anthony, when a new manager comes in and just isn't interested in it, and you have to take a huge loss on that player.
Yeah, I mean, looking at some of the other players we've signed down the years, obviously there are certain standouts in terms of we're never going to last or never sort of translate. Some of the loans and the free transfers, obviously Cavani was 33, 34 when we signed him. Cristiano Ronaldo, who was signed when Cavani was still there, let's not forget, was 37 when we signed him. Obviously we had Igalo on loan, again, more of a short-term thing, I get that. Before that, you go back, we got Matic when he was 29. We got Alexis Sanchez, I think he was 28 when we signed him as well. Zlatan Ibrahimovic was 35 when he came to Manchester United. And it felt like Mkhitaryan, I think he was a little bit younger, but I don't remember how old he was, 25, 26 when we signed him.
You're going to count Lee Grant?
I'm not going to count Lee Grant, don't worry. But then you go back to even all the way back to sort of Van Gaal, and you look at sort of the types of players he wanted. So we got Victor Valdez in, who was a sort of thought to be more of a ball-playing goalkeeper, because that's what he did at Barca, even though he wasn't that great at that as it turned out. But we've got players like Daley Blind, we've got players like Marcus Rojo, who were thought to be able to play out from the back. and then you get rid of him and you bring Jose in, and all of a sudden those players don't work anymore. They don't translate. So there has to be a coherence there, and people are so obsessed with the system and the formation, like 3 at the back being this kind of that must mean it's entirely different to every 4-3-3 or 4-3-2-1. This 3 at the back has a lot more in common with some 4 at the backs than other 4 at the backs do. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think, for instance, Van Gaal and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer played completely different football, but they both played 4 at the back. Van Gaal wanted slow, methodical, controlling build-up play from the back. Ole wanted to get the ball forward quickly and win games, and I think Ten Hag had a bit of that as well. But it does feel as though you've got players now who, if Amorim was to leave, you wouldn't have to sell the entire squad and have a massive fire sale and a clear out like we have done this summer. Obviously, it all feels like that now. You never know what happens if a manager does change, but it does feel as though there's a more kind of considered approach to things. And also, here's the other big thing that I think is crucial in all this. We've finally dropped if we just get someone in that space, we can challenge again. Let's just get like now the DM and the situation with the defensive midfield is what's sort of proven this to me over the summer. In seasons gone by, we would have gone, bloody hell, we've had a better window than we thought. We've got a brand new attack. We got a left back in January, wing back in January. We're basically only a DM away from, I don't know, maybe being top 4. Who knows after that? And instead of going, we can't get Baleba, but if we fill that slot, we can be a top 4 team. Let's go and get a 29-year-old like we would have done in the past, just to do it. Instead, we've gone, no, we need to get the person that we want, and we're going to wait for him, or we're going to wait for someone who ticks the boxes that we want our players to tick. I think we've finally dropped this idea that we're only an extra signing or 2 away from challenging again, or away from, I don't know, maybe we had to drop as low as we did for the people, for the ownership to be able to say, we aren't going to challenge for the league this season. Get that out of your head, and we all have. So we can build methodically and sensibly rather than having to push one step further every time to try and, if we get Cristiano Ronaldo, maybe we can challenge for the title. And realistically, that wasn't the case. I think we finally accepted we can build this properly, slowly, and actually make this work, which for me is a big thing.
I just don't, it does work out. And Amorim's got a bit of an opportunity here because I think the bar's been lowered so much that if you finish 7th, you probably keep your job. Whereas I can't remember a time as a United fan where that would have been the case. You finished 7th. I know Ten Hag finished 8th, but he won an FA Cup and he only just kept his job, let's be honest. But if you finish 7th and don't win out, you could probably still keep your job. Yeah. Whereas in the past, that would never happen.
As long as there are other signs that
so you can do this, like, my point is, you might have a little bit more patience to slowly get to where we need to get. Whereas in the past, you have to deliver a top 4 finish or a trophy. Or even, Louis van Gaal finished 5th and won the FA Cup and got sacked. Like, I know it was because Jose was waiting there, but it's still, that's what happened. It wasn't like they went, well, we're not going to get Jose in because Van Gaal's delivered. It was like he's not done well enough. We're still going to go with Jose Mourinho. So I think now Amorim's still got to show something, but he's got this slight advantage over previous United managers in the sense that the bar has been lowered to the point where
that's bang on. It is bang on. He almost probably has. To be fair, there's Manchester United managers, so it's never going to be fair to say there isn't pressure or expectation. There is. And you've seen the eyeballs, seen the amount of interviews he's had to do for one. He's become a little bit of a gimmick. But you do almost have to toe that line between that kind of being realistic and about where United are and thinking finishing 7th and 6th should be seen as okay, but then you still have that thing in your back of your head and think, especially with how open the league is now, especially when I've seen the first few weeks, where is that really the bar and the standard that United should be aspiring for? Not really, but it's almost like because last season was so bad and Amorim did so poorly in the league, but then getting a chance for another season, it's almost like lowered the bar of expectation for himself, where he probably does have a lot more leeway than past managers. And I think that's kind of a domino effect of each manager we've appointed since Fergie, where it's felt like no managers worked. United, because we had Fergie for nearly 3 decades, there's this kind of like mythicizing about managers within the fan base as well anyway. And I don't think any fan base likes managers being sacked every 2 years and having to start again. So I feel like each manager that comes in, it feels like they'll get in more time, and more patience and more allowance. Just because it's like, oh, surely you've got to work now. I can't do this again.
I think there was a point where it went from being we are a couple of signings away from topping back up to challenging again, and that crossed over into actually we need to realise that this requires a proper reset and we can't keep sort of papering over the cracks. And I feel like we're finally getting there with that. We've got loads of comments and chats. Akash K says, a competent sporting structure is designed to protect the club if the players that are signed can at least suit multiple managers. I think it's obvious and it should be the case, but for so long it hasn't been the case at Man United.
It's a good point about the sporting structure, isn't it? Because you look at our rivals that have had success, look at City, look at Liverpool. There's a proper structure in place. Now, you can say Pep Guardiola's obviously, because he's smashed at City, but Mancini and Pellegrini won titles there. You look at the famous anecdote from Klopp is that he wanted Julian Brandt, and the club went, no, we're going to get you Mohamed Salah.
Yeah.
Like, there was a structure there that knew what they were doing.
And now back-to-back managers have won the league at Liverpool as well.
Exactly. It's not just one manager who's a genius who does whatever. So there's a structure there, whereas at United, it's almost like the opposite of that.
Yeah. Happy says, great to see you lads, much love and respect, thank you very much. Brian Casey, who's been a member for 31 months, thank you. Says, really loving the new regime, 2 years and done. I think he's talking about players and not getting, years and years of chances. Need ruthlessness back at the club, and that is being adhered to, isn't it? I think was it 2 years or 3 years for Anthony? Actually, it might be 3 years with Anthony. But certainly Onana 2 years, Højlund 2 years. I think Mason Mount's one that people try and raise, but I think seen
the injuries
from him on the pitch
injuries
in the
might
last
have
few months,
perversely helped Mason Mount, because whereas Højlund played a lot of games, Onana played a lot of games. Mount, he's played probably more than you think, but he hasn't played nearly as many as them.
4 in a row for the first time since he arrived?
He hasn't. That
April.
might be his sort of get out of jail free card, is the idea that, look, he hasn't been fit, we haven't really seen what he's about. Whereas with Onana and Højlund, you probably had enough of an opportunity to make a genuine assessment on them. Yeah. Which is where the club might have gone, look, they're not up to it.
And the other thing with... Oh, sorry.
No. That's why I think there is a bit... Because I was speaking about this in the news yesterday. I do get the fact that Mason Mount is now in his 3rd season. Yeah. But he can probably look at the idea of, look, I've been injured for a lot of it, where the others can't. And also, Mason Mount is 26. So I think Onana's, 29 now? Like, you're not going to get much more out of him. Obviously, Højlund is different, which is why there's this 50 million package for taking him away from us. But yeah, I think Mount does get one extra chance. Glenn F, who's been a member for 54 months, thank you very much, Glenn, says, I'm here to say that we're going to beat City and then move down the East Lancs Road and beat them, unless it's at Old Trafford, ? No, he's right. He is right. Up the Reds and up the Paddock. Thank you very much, Glenn, as always, for being in the chat as well. Ben Toppin says, nice catching this live for once. Thanks for joining us, Ben. Not panicking this season. We're undergoing a total transformation and need to take measured steps to the top again. Exactly. And I think that, like we said, it's a mixture of good and bad, or mostly bad. But eventually, we all go as fans. It does need to be like this. It can't just be one Ronaldo will fix it, or a Ronaldo and a Varane will fix it, a 28-year-old and a 37-year-old, and that'll get us over the line. Because if we'd have won the league that season, obviously it would have been amazing. But then Ronaldo would have left the season after and would have had to have got a brand new striker again and started again almost. That's the summer that kills me.
Don't get me wrong, I'd take one title right now, I'd kill for it. But how much better would it be if you win that one and then you challenge again for the next 5 seasons as well? That would be absolutely fantastic, wouldn't it? It felt, for that brief moment, like in the summer, maybe it was just ahead of the Leeds game when they unveiled Varane, or maybe a little bit after that when Ronnie came. I just thought, oh yeah, we might be here now. We might be at it with Sancho and Varane and Ronaldo, and by then, what was it? By December, all had been sacked. It's just that short term, innit? Like, I know. And I got swept up in it massive. I was like, yeah, United have just spent this is it. 10 years trying to take shortcuts, innit? That's playing a little bit more of the long game. Yeah. But it still doesn't guarantee success, but hopefully it ends up being a bit of a smarter approach. Yeah. Especially with the signings, like you said, we've made a lot of short-term, older signings where even if they give you 1 or 2 good years, you just end up having to replace them again, so it's not sustainable over a long period of time. No, exactly. That's why you're hoping, that's why a signing like Lenny Euro, we forked out a lot of money for, who looks like he's going to be a world beater. You're going to get 10 years, you could get 10, 15 years of borderline world-class centre-half play from him. That's the type of signings you want to be making. Yeah, and people say, like, and I've said this before, like, we need to behave a bit more like Brighton or a bit more like Brentford. But obviously you don't want to just copy them because they never win anything and they finish mid-table every season. But they don't make signings like 60 million on Lenny Yoro or 65, 70 million on Cunha. No, exactly, and Cunha and Burma. But we're not just copying them to the point where we're going to be looking back in 2 years going, well, I mean, we might do, who knows? But we are taking more risks, spending bigger and going for the sort of slightly more high-profile versions of the players they want. It's not an exact one-to-one replica. I think that worries people a little bit.
It's so difficult as well, isn't it, to know, like, some players need that move to a Brighton or a Brentford.
Yeah.
Before they can go to United. Not all of them.
Better environments for developing.
Yeah, I mean, like, there's not, as Ronnie would say, the eyes aren't on you, not the same amount of eyes on you at Brighton. The expectation isn't there. You're not in front of 76,000 fans, just, where the levels or the expectation is much higher. You might have a little bit more patience. You might not have as much scrutiny. It might not be that bad if you have, it takes you half a season to get going or whatever. Whereas in United, you have a bad half a season, that might be it.
It's the same with managers. It's like Thomas Frank at Brentford. Because I spoke to you and said that obviously I'm a big fan of Thomas Frank. I do think he's a really good manager. But obviously I watch Premier League football. There would be like 3-game periods where Brentford would lose 4-0. They'd lose 2-1 the next game, and then they'd draw, and they'd lose the next. And it's like they've not won a match in 4 matches. Yeah. But that wouldn't get covered. That wouldn't get no one would say anything about that. But now that he's gone to Spurs,
you'll get a lot of that.
If he can't do that,
I was watching them last season. I think it was either March or April. It might have been February, but certainly post Christmas. And I remember watching the game, and they were also at the end of the game. They're saying this is the first time Brentford have won back-to-back games all season, and you think. At Brentford, that's all right because you win here, you draw, you win. But at Tottenham, if you don't win 2 games in a row, like look at Amorim now, how we're all very well aware that he hasn't won back-to-back Premier League games for Man United, and that is that's something that doesn't get sort of tracked and scrutinised quite as much. In that instance, it was like, oh, look at Brentford all cheering and happy, well done. Whereas it would be, thank God he's finally finished that terrible record. So things do change.
It's like players as well. That's the same thing. Sometimes it probably is better for players to play somewhere where they can obviously develop themselves a little bit. They get platformed really well. Usually if they're one of the best players on the team, like Cunha at Wolves or Mbeumo at Brentford, and then you can almost like build your cachet, get a bit of confidence, and then you make the big step up, and then the pressure's a little bit higher. And it's about whether they deal with that. Because we found out, I think we've signed a lot of quality players in the past. It's just about the mentality aspect and almost like having that, grabbing games by the scruff of your neck and performing week in, week out. And I think Bruno has been like one of the few players that we signed that's kind of like encapsulated that. He's kind of rose to the occasion and took the lead. And but not many people have that kind of character mentality.
No, it's tough. Abhinav Verma says we should be in full Operation Belabour. Text him at odd hours, you up? So he's only thinking about United. I mean, there were some reports that he still fancies the United move, but we'll see what changes in the next 6 months or 12 months. Well, let's move on. Let's talk about this Premier League Hall of Fame, Jay. Because the new nominees came out. For anyone who doesn't know, what is the Premier League Hall of Fame? And actually, even for me, what actually is the Premier League Hall of Fame?
It's just like, we've seen it in like, is it rock and roll and other sports, boxing and all that, where it's like
NFL,
WWE, Hall of Fame of like the greatest players or the greatest participants in that field or whatever. And the Premier League was about 3 seasons ago maybe, brought it out. 2 or 3 seasons ago, I remember. And there was controversy from the start, wasn't there? Because I think originally the 2 first players were going to be Alan Shearer and Ryan Giggs, I think, which is like the Premier League top scorer and the most successful Premier League player ever with 13 titles. And then Giggs was going through his court case, so it was like, well, better not. So he was sort of dropped, and I think it was Henry. It was one of the first, the inaugural.
I think it might have been on
like entrance. And then Giggs has always been ignored since then. Even though obviously the court case, I think he had a second trial. I'm not 100% on the exact machinations of what went on, but then I think it didn't go to trial again. Yeah. But he's never been acknowledged or recognised with this, which is kind of stupid to me, in the sense that it's just like the elephant in the room. You've got someone who won 13 Premier League titles who's just never getting nominated, and there's nothing is said about it.
And they also need to just say,
and also, if it is a moral judgment, then okay, John Terry, whilst he got found not guilty in a magistrate's court, still served a 4-match ban for racism. Yeah. He's in there. Now, I'm not comparing what's going on. I'm just saying, if you are going to make moral judgments, what's your sort of standard? And also, it seems to make a bit of a mockery of it when you've got a guy who's won 13 Premier League titles who's not being nominated, and yet you've got nominees who haven't won any. You've got people in it who haven't won any. Obviously, they didn't play for Manchester United, but it just seems a bit stupid to me, the whole sort of idea of it. It just does.
So the next lot of nominees are Sol Campbell, Michael Carrick, Jermaine Defoe, Patrice Evra, Cesc Fabregas, Les Ferdinand, Robbie Fowler, Eden Hazard, Gary Neville, Michael Owen, Teddy Sheringham, David Silva, Yaya Toure, Edwin van der Sar, and Nemanja Vidic. So 7 of those are former Man United players in one guise or another.
How many are you going to select?
2, I think.
2. Who would your 2 be out of those, Ronnie? In terms of, because also this is the thing with the whole Hall of Fame. It's what is it? It's sort of greatness. It's Premier League pedigree, but also kind of their impact and effect on their club and the sort of legacy of the Premier League. Because like Gerrard isn't in there, like you said. It's not most titles won.
No,
he's in there because up until probably Salah, he was Liverpool's most effective and best player. You know, I think there were players who should have been in higher than him, but you get why he's in there, even though he didn't win.
Yeah, I don't agree with it, but I understand it. It's not like I don't understand how that can happen. Of course I do. I just don't think it's right.
Yeah.
You don't reckon Gerrard should be Hall of Fame?
No.
Not at all?
No.
Tell us
do you think you should have to have won the Premier League to even qualify?
I think unless you're playing like, I understand that someone like Matt Letizia at Southampton is different because he stayed at one club that was never going to win a title. He kept them up. He scored a load of goals for him. Fantastic, right? Steven Gerrard was one of probably the second biggest club in England, right? There was a spell where they had very good players around him and he never won a title. He cost them a title. And there's just better players that should be in ahead of him. Like, I don't understand why not winning a Premier League title at a club like Liverpool, it just gets ignored and it doesn't matter. Well, what, he left them 4 years later, they won it. It's not a coincidence. Like, obviously he was a very, very good player. I'm not saying he wasn't. But he didn't win a Premier League title. So why is he in the Premier League Hall of Fame when he was at a club the size of Liverpool with players around him like Xabi Alonso, like Fernando Torres, like Mascherano, all these class players that everyone agrees are so good, and yet he's in the Premier League Hall of Fame. And players that won, you know, Gary Neville's won 9 and he's not in there yet.
This is getting clipped. But you know what?
It's just, to me, it makes zero sense.
You know what? This Hall of Fame, this Americanization Hall of Fame thing, what Jay's fits into that category. There's a lot of people in the American discourse when it comes to the NFL and the NBA that are like you, where they weigh most of it on. They call it the rings. Do you know what I mean? Like rings. So it's basically who's won titles, who's won Super Bowls, who's won championships, etc. Whereas for people argue that the Hall of Fame isn't just about that. Obviously, it is factored in quite heavily, but it's also about quality of player, what they've done individually, statistically, the impact on their team, and I think that's the reason why they'd probably push players nominated that haven't won titles. But I feel like a majority of the ones that they have put in have, but it's not. It's something that's argued about in those sports as well, where some people weigh too much about whether someone's won a title or not, because you might have average players within a team.
Like,
I've won 10 titles.
Anderson won 4 or something.
Yeah, exactly.
I wouldn't say I'm not going to argue, even though I liked Anderson, that he's a better player than Steven Gerrard. But Gerrard, for me, his best moments in a Liverpool shirt was the FA Cup final and the Champions League final. I just think he's been a very, very, obviously very good player for him. But I just think there's better players, or certainly players that have achieved more in the Premier League, that should be ahead of players that haven't won it.
Gerrard finished second twice and third 4 times. So it's not like you said. It's not like he's playing for a terrible team that had no chance of winning the Premier League.
That's a team, and also, let's not forget, he cost him a title, man.
That one's a stain. That was a stain. But it's difficult. It is difficult, especially football.
I'm not saying he's not a good player. I'm just saying for the Hall of Fame, for me, it's just a bit daft.
Who are you putting in then?
So you'd only have people in the Hall of Fame for the Premier League if they've won a title?
It depends on the context. Which team were they at? Like, Matt Letizia is an obvious one because he was at a club that was never going to win a title.
Yeah,
but he did very, very well for it.
But then could that be used against him, saying if he was a better player, then he could have
maybe? There's a counter argument to it. But I kind of respect someone that's at a smaller club, stays there, keeps them up, does well. And Matt, I remember I watched Matt Letizia. He was phenomenal. I get that because Southampton were never going to win a title. They just weren't. Whereas there's a time when Liverpool should have won a title, and one of the reasons they didn't was because of Gerrard. It's not. I don't think it's that controversial, to be honest with you. I think that a player that cost his team the title and didn't win any shouldn't be in the Premier League Hall of Fame over players that have won lots and lots of titles.
Needed to stay on here for this debate. That's what he wanted.
He's already done it. Steve will do it to like, and I agree with a lot with Steve. But then Steve will take it a step further and go like Phil Neville or whoever should be in over Gerrard or whatever. He'll take it to the point where
Jonathan Green.
He genuinely doesn't think Gerrard is a good player.
I'm not arguing that. I think he was a good player. I just don't particularly think he should have been one of the early entrants into the Premier League Hall of Fame.
Do you think only 2 are going in from that?
Yeah, so who you put in and out of that list, Ronnie? I'll run through them again while you have a think. So we've got Sol Campbell, Carrick, Defoe, Evra, Fabregas, Les Ferdinand, Fowler, Hazard, Gary Neville, Owen, Sheringham, David Silva, Yaya Toure, Van der Sar and Vidic.
That is hard.
It's a tough list. I think 100% Gary Neville has to be one of them.
I'm thinking Gary Neville's one.
That is a shout.
He's the only one on there, I would say, other than Van der Sar, that you can make that I think is the best ever in their position in the Premier League. I don't think any of the rest of them. Vidic, you can maybe have the argument. David Silva, you can maybe have the argument if you think he's the best attacking. But I don't think anyone else on there is the best in their position of all time in the Premier League. And Gary Neville, for me, is the best right back.
Was it 9?
9, and he's won 9 titles. He has to be in there.
What are we doing here?
Yeah.
Like, come on. And the trouble with Gary Neville is Gary Neville. Because if ever he's on the telly, he makes out like he was crap. And he just his name got pulled out of a hat and he got to play for United. Like, he always downplays how good he was. He was mint. And he was the first, like, other than Giggs, he was like the first one in 92, class of 92, to break into the team and get in the England team. And he was in Euro 96 when Beckham and Scholes weren't and Butt wasn't, because he was mint.
And the other thing that winds me up as well is, with someone like Neville, is people acting like his mentality and the fact that he worked hard is something that doesn't count. Because I can tell you right now, there's probably a longer list of players who should have been better than they were because they didn't work hard enough, or their mentality wasn't right, or they didn't take it seriously off the pitch, or they didn't work for their teammates. That list is a hell of a lot longer than the ones who overachieve because they work hard. Yeah. So I think it's far easier to be a Hatem Ben Arfa or an Adel Taarabt than it is to be a Gary Neville, who actually fucking overachieved because his mentality to win time and time again for 600 odd appearances for Man United. That is a lot more impressive than being talented and wasting it. Or even, like, I just think that whole thing of, well, it's just because he worked hard and he just, so
but
that's a lot easier said than done. Though. No, and of course he also was incredibly talented. But the whole working hard thing, it's hard. It's really so much easier said than done.
Really good crossing him.
Yeah.
Underrated crossing.
Do you know what? To be fair, but I think that list as a debate, like, to be had, is quite good. Yeah, I think there's a lot of players in there
because I'm trying to go one United, one non-United.
Like, you know, I think
Gary Neville has to be.
I could quite easily make the case for Michael Carrick, where I know there's people that quite easily make the case for Cesc Fabregas, and I get it.
Yeah,
it's not like I'm like, what are you on about? Because Fabregas was obviously an amazing player. We were talking about this earlier on in the office. Like, in terms of one season, I think probably the best season perhaps I've seen from anyone on now, one of the best seasons certainly is Yaya Toure in 2013-14. It was unreal. But it's not like he didn't have the longevity of someone like a Carrick or a Fabregas.
It's funny, longevity is a massive factor as well in Hall of Fame.
And that is Neville. I think Neville is a certainty.
I think Neville's the first one where you go, why is he not even in there already? Get him in there. Let's not be silly about it.
It's tough after that, because I was trying to go one United, one non. Because I feel like that if I was to go 2 United, I would have gone Neville and Vidic. But if I was to go 1 non, it's hard.
The thing with the thing that lets Fabregas, so if looking through him, the thing that lets Fabregas down for me is he spent his peak years out of the Premier League.
Okay.
And I appreciate that he was fantastic for Arsenal, and as a young player he was unbelievable. And he was underrated for Chelsea as well. He was very good. But you can't be in Barcelona from, like, 21 to 25 or 23 to 27, whatever it was, and then come back when there's so many people on this list who spent all of their prime in England. I think that knocks him down.
You think some of these players, like the likes of a Fabregas and Eden Hazard, it's the heavy lifting their nomination is just the actual calibre and quality of their ability.
But I think in a normal conversation that would be enough. But you're up against some of the all-time greats here. So I'm picking tiny holes. I know that Fabregas still had loads of great years in England, but I'm just trying to separate in any way I can.
Because you got Defoe and Les Ferdinand there. I think Defoe almost had. I think Defoe got like part of the 150 Premier League goals.
Yeah, I think he would have done.
Something like that. And then you've obviously Les Ferdinand we
when
checked earlier.
when I was a kid, Les Ferdinand, when he was at QPR, I was one of those players that because it was the start of the Premier League, so you got to see a little bit more football, and Ferdinand was just phenomenal. And he'd been around a little while, Ferdinand. I think he'd been on loan and stuff abroad, and he was one of those players that sort of slips under the radar, and then he started, shining and getting in the England squad. I mean, people will think I'm biased, but I just, for me, it's Michael Carrick.
I think it's strong.
It just fucking is. I'm sorry. Right, look, you can make a case for all of us. I think, is it 5 Premier League titles for Michael Carrick? And if you're just talking about the Premier League as well, just what follows in the Premier League, he was just fucking mint every week in the Premier League. And even going back to our last title in 2013, like, if you remember, I think we got knocked out of the FA Cup by Chelsea. I think Fergie rested him. And it was like, he was just vital to us. Like, Michael Carrick, and I think pretty much every time we didn't win it, he finished second. I know people don't care about that because that's, I said that about Gerrard, but we were always there or thereabouts. It was just week in, week out, absolute turn up. One of the most successful players, I think, in the club's history in terms of the trophies he won. No, this is about the Premier League. And also, let's not forget, listen, I love Nemanja Vidic, but when the going got tough, he fucked off. Michael Carrick stayed and carried on winning trophies with us well into when he's his late 30s or whatever it was. Like, for me, it's Michael Carrick, and I think whilst I can admit is Yaya Toure a more talented player than Michael Carrick or Cesc Fabregas? Probably are, yeah. But in terms of the job he did in the Premier League, Michael Carrick's second to none.
I don't think they'll do 2 United players on it.
I think you're right, Ronnie. That's my choice. And even over some like Van der Sar, who I love, is my favourite ever keeper, and Vidic, who I think he's one of the best defenders I've ever seen in my life.
Because that everyone will.
I would agree with you though, Jay, Carrick. But let's say we can't have 2 United players, so we're definitely keeping Neville.
That's what mine was Vidic. Can't lie.
No, but I'm not.
I'm a Carrick guy.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't. Even Teddy Sheringham, I won't say even. PFA Player of the Year, top scorer in the Premier League, I think, at Spurs and also at United. I think he did it at 2 different clubs. Like, just as a Premier League player, Teddy Sheringham, ridiculous, and he played till he was about 73 years old.
What's crazy? I
just feel like there's others that are a bit above.
Yeah, it's crazy. Always a player we not mentioned. I feel like if we're talking about the United players on there that have probably got a best shout, I think he might be close to getting in when he do it.
Who?
We've not even mentioned Robbie Fowler, just based on the amount of goals he scored. I think is he top 5? Is he top 5 all time? Premier League goal scorer?
The weird thing with Fowler is, like, when he was in his early 20s, when he was at the Scousers, he was ridiculous. Then I feel like, I don't know, when he went to Leeds and then to City, I don't know. I feel like
this
a big chunk.
This is your day, Jay.
I feel like a bit.
Talk to us about Sol Campbell as well, because he was past his peak when I sort of.
To be fair to Sol Campbell, I think he made his debut when he was about 12 years old or something stupid. He was like 16 in the Spurs team. Obviously, the big controversy was Sol Campbell was going from Spurs to Arsenal, which it's a debate I can't be asked getting into. But Sol Campbell was for about 10 years one of the best defenders in the Premier League. He just was. There's no sugarcoating or no pretending. He was a fantastic defender. Was he a better defender than Nemanja Vidic though? No, not for me. I think Nemanja Vidic is in the conversation for the greatest defender the Premier League's ever seen. I don't think Sol Campbell is quite in that conversation. He's up there, but I think he'd be like, in that conversation, the greatest defender ever would be Vidic, Stam, Rio, Van Dijk.
Terry.
Then maybe,
people would put him.
People
in
would
there,
put John Terry in there. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Then in the second rung, you'd have the likes of Sol Campbell. Maybe you'd have Vincent Kompany. Those, do you know what I mean? He'd be probably in the
fantastic, but not quite
top
the goal
conversation. That rung below. Sorry. So, and also for me, going back to what you talked about earlier on here, someone like Defoe. He was at Spurs, he was at West Ham, he was at Portsmouth, very good clubs.
On Defoe, Sunderland. I don't know if this is bang on, but he never got 20 Premier League goals in a season.
And also, and I think I always think if you're that good a striker in that, you play at a United or a Liverpool or an Arsenal, or I know he was at Spurs, but do you know what I mean? Like you have a title challenge in you, and I don't think he did. So that's not again saying he wasn't a good player, because he was mint, and I was worried when we played against one of his teams. But I just don't feel he's like.
Who are you saying then? Let's pick one. A non-United player, it's not allowed.
Because you're looking at the list as well, and obviously Eden Hazard. Obviously has. I think did he win 2 titles with Chelsea? Was it 1?
Nah, I think he would have won 2 in it. Surely.
Two.
Yeah,
I can't imagine he only won 1.
If you're actually looking,
he got 2.
If you're actually looking at that list, is he one of the probably the only one, or one of the only that you could say had a period in the Premier League of being the best player in the league?
Who, Hazard?
Yes.
That's a good point. I think, like you said, Yaya Toure was arguably... But again,
Toure
the year that he
also-
had, Suarez probably had a better season. But he was right up there for
That season, I think, the 2013-14
yeah.
season, I hate City, and I'm not particularly like Yaya Toure, but that season, he was ridiculous. And everyone got sort of caught up in the hype about how Gerrard had cost Liverpool the league rather than City had won it, which I've got no issue with. But Toure that season was unreal. And going back to 2012 when he won it, everyone goes about Aguero's goal. But Toure was, a big part of that as well. I think he won 2 titles, didn't he, at City? I think he'd gone by the time they won the first one under Pep Guardiola. But I think in terms of what he could do on his day, I think Toure is probably the best player I've seen for City on his day.
Won 3 Premier
Three,
Leagues.
sorry. I think though De Bruyne is
barely
probably
played in
their
that
best
last
ever
one, I
player
think,
because of the longevity he had. But I think that sort of 2012 to 2014 Yaya Toure was unreal. I really do.
Go on then, who are you picking? Pick one. Let's chat more. Pick.
Non-United. I might actually go Yaya.
Don't mind that at all, mate.
I think Yaya.
Don't mind.
I think
that at all.
Jay's talked him up enough, but it was for me. I was looking at Toure or Hazard. I don't know if that's more me being a young,
Young buck.
in terms of it. But obviously, I'm looking at that list and thinking Hazard has a shout for being one of the only ones on that list that went through a 2-season-ish spell of being the best player in the league. And I think that cast account for something.
Yeah.
And then obviously, but Yaya with the titles as well, probably nipping Hazard there. So I'd go Yaya.
Jay,
I'd have probably gone Yaya Toure, to be honest with you.
would you?
Yeah, and I don't like that as someone who hates Manchester City with passion.
What's the consensus?
But
It's very mixed. It's
Yeah.
very mixed. A lot of people saying Toure was class. People looking at Fabregas as well. I think I might be on for David Silva.
That's a
Just
good option
because
as
he
well.
was such a talisman for them for so long.
yeah, no, I
Whereas
hear that.
Toure obviously was amazing for a few years, but then, dipped in and out, and by the end wasn't really playing. David Silva was like the face of Man City with him and company and Aguero for a long time. They were the new Man City.
Do you know what? It might as well. Like, I think Toure suffers because he was, he fell out of Pep a bit, didn't he? And it was like, it wasn't always like the little choir boy that someone like a David Silva was just unproblematic constantly.
Yeah.
And obviously Mint, I'm not saying he wasn't, even though I don't like him.
Company and Aguero were already in, by the way.
Yeah.
Wally of the week then. Let's move on to Wally of the week.
International weekend.
International weekend edition. Who are you saying?
I'm saying that's what the Wally of the week is.
Is it not you for getting so drunk on Saturday that you still feel hungover?
He'd be a
now?
Wally if he didn't do that.
Oh yeah, that's a good point.
Oh,
Steve smashed
The
it.
fact that I was, I'm definitely Wally of the week.
Yeah.
For what? For being
For what you've done.
for sleeping 2 hours on my front porch.
Yeah.
In the early morning of Sunday. Yeah.
Really?
Yes.
Jesus. Jay, who's yours?
This is a tough one, man. I'm trying to think who's been a Wally of the week. Do you know what? I'll just go with just England. It just does me head in. Like the national team, not the country. Like, what was it, Andorra? Is it 2-0? And then there's this mini meltdown about it all, and it's just fucking shut up and bore off.
Yeah. I agree with that. I was going to say that. Just the reaction of England have been like just unconvincingly winning game after game after game for about 10 years.
Yeah.
Like, wait, just get to a tournament and start caring again. Since Tuchel's got here, he's won every game. You'd think we'd lost every game.
Playing Andorra twice a year.
I know it's easy,
well,
but I get it. But it's like the problem with Southgate
Didn't
was that when you
Senegal
got
beat
to
him?
the big teams. I think that was a friendly.
Oh, right, sorry.
Yeah,
I wasn't.
I think when you get to the big teams in the big tournaments, that's when you can start worrying. But that was the whole thing that Southgate was missing. He's literally got to finals and semi-finals. There isn't much to improve. You just need to be able to beat your fans here and there. Anyway,
Rashford getting a load of stick because Tuchel said he didn't have the wow factor. So listen, I can't be asked regurgitating the Marcus Rashford debate. But I was a bit like, I thought like it'd be a bit deeper than he had a quiet game against Andorra or whatever. I was just like, just England, man, does me head in.
Yeah. Tom Boy says, how embarrassing do you think the ex-pros are who've been nominated before gigs? They should feel a bit awkward receiving it before him. You just have to not think about it, wouldn't you? Because obviously there is this weird political shadow hanging over the whole thing. Abhinav Verma says, Gerrard is a testament to the importance of marketing to get anything in life. Brian Kevill says, where's Dennis Irwin, the best fullback of his generation? I think Dennis Irwin's already in. Yeah, there's a few that's already in there, obviously. No, I don't know if he is.
Fuck off. I didn't realise that's a travesty.
Because he was on one of the early.
So that is the worst thing I've ever seen in my life.
That is terrible. Good point, Brian. Played Out says some fans would take Big Sam to finish 6th instead of getting players who are smart and talented enough to run a system that can win the league. Exactly, that's what we need to move away from. I know that's an exaggerated example, but I agree with your point there. Sam Sargent is a new member. Thank you. Ash Raya says Premier League Hall of Fame means nothing until Ryan Giggs is in it. They didn't even let Fergie have his moment as the only manager to be in the Hall of Fame first. I think they brought him in and Wenger at the same time, didn't they?
An absolute disgrace.
Yeah, it is. Miguel Garcia says, I'm really late to the stream, but I'm worried that Cobby might be in the same situation asking for a new contract. I don't know, just me speculating. I'm hopeful now we can put the Cobby stuff behind us, at least until January. Let's see how we get on for a while first. And Abdullah Ibrahim says, not just playing Andorra, but having an international break 3 games into the season. That is annoying as well, isn't it? Yeah. Thanks, England. Absolute wallet of the week. Thank you, Jay, as always. Thank you, Ronnie,
Joe,
for making it through. You've battled. The weekend hasn't gone the better of you. You've been fine. No one would have known unless we brought it up about 10 times. Thank you again to Surfshark as well for sponsoring the podcast. My name's Joe. That's Jay. That's Ronaldo. We'll see you in a bit.